Good afternoon. How is everyone? Good afternoon. How are you? Great. That's awesome. Wonderful. So first of all, welcome to this session. And I would love, especially if you are not totally comfortable where you're seated right now, I would certainly invite you to come a little closer to the front if you would like to. So that our wonderful school leaders here can see your faces as they're sharing their experiences. So feel free, or just be really comfortable. That works too. Okay. My name is Sarah Brown Wessling. I am the director of the National Teacher of the Year program and the 2010 National Teacher of the Year, and so proud to be able to have some of my colleagues here with us this afternoon. Before I was the director of the National Teacher of the Year program, I was a classroom teacher. I've been a classroom teacher, high school English teacher for 26 years. And before I was an English teacher, back when I was in middle school, I had an occasion in which I was in the middle of a competition, and I was on a stage, and somebody asked me what I wanted to do, like what career I wanted to take on. And my answer was to be a middle school principal. And the follow-up question was, well, why do you want to be a principal? And in my young, naive response, I said, well, because I like to be in charge. And I think I audibly heard my dad gasp in the audience. Thank goodness I figured out, first of all, that that's not the role of a principal. What I obviously have learned since then is that being a principal is one of the most complex, intense jobs within any school community. I also know that when you are in the presence of an inspired school leader, everyone in that space feels empowered and uplifted. Whether you are a teacher, a student, a parent, a support personnel, when you have school leaders that see people as humans and with all of their potential, it's just a really beautiful thing. And when I had the opportunity to think about this conversation today, I thought about these three incredible school leaders who embody that sense of leadership in really, really profound ways. So I am excited to get this conversation underway. I am going to have them introduce themselves kind of by way of our first question, and we will have some time for some Q&A towards the end. So if you have those questions, be sure to keep those queued up for yourselves so that we can also include those in our conversation. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. The other thing that's really unique about all three of these school leaders that you're going to hear very, very shortly is that all three of these school leaders are also state teachers of the year. And they made the explicit decision to take that teacher self into this school leadership role. So that's my first question for each of you. So go ahead and introduce yourselves as we go through. And my first question is, how did you get here? What was your path?
Okay. My name's Lorynn Guerrero. I'm the 2022 New Mexico Teacher of the Year. I'm also an assistant principal at Gadsden High School. That's in Anthony, New Mexico. It's right on the border. We're in Anthony, New Mexico. Across the street is Anthony, Texas. And so we have about 1,200 students at my high school, and I've been there for 3 years now, and so I enjoy my job. My path was very easy, which I think is not okay, because I've seen other people's jobs into administration and it takes them a couple years, and I graduated in May of 22 with my master's in school administration, and then I had the job in August, and I went on 3 interviews. And so it was a little bit different than what I had seen other people do. My dad was an administrator, and it took him about 3 to 4 years to get an administration job. So my path was a little bit different.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Anthony Swann. I'm the 2021 Virginia State Teacher of the Year. I currently serve as an assistant principal of Monterey Elementary in Roanoke, Virginia. We have about 520 children. And the way that I got into school leadership is I've had a degree since 2015, but I could never pass my state board test. And so I took the test twice and I failed. And at that moment, I was just like, you know what? I wasted $900. Let me just stay in the classroom. And so when I became state teacher of the year, I was visiting a school and a principal was like, have you ever thought about it? And I told her that I had failed twice, and she was like, you don't give up, you go again. And if you fail it the 3rd time, save up your money and take it again. And so from there, she kind of inspired me to take it again. And the 3rd time I passed because I had hired a consultant to help me to pass. And so I'm actually glad that this is my 3rd year in administration.
Hi everyone, my name is Brianna Ross. I'm the 2022 Maryland State Teacher of the Year, and I am an assistant principal at Deer Park Middle Magnet School, which is in Randallstown, Maryland, which is Baltimore County, right outside of Baltimore City. My path was very much like Lorynn's in that it was very linear. So I was a middle school world history teacher, became the department chair, and I was very, very fortunate and lucky that I got to be an assistant. I'm an assistant principal in the school that I taught at, which was amazing because I really understand the challenges of my school on lots of levels as a teacher, as an instructional leader, and as a school leader. But in terms of like what got me here and the path that got me here, really it was about how can I recreate what I'm doing in my classroom of 30 with a grade level of 400, right? It was just about, I was doing such beautiful things in my classroom, and I was just absolutely loving the relationship I was having with the students in front of me. And I felt like if we can replicate this on a school-wide level, what would that look like? And that's really what got me into school leadership, was thinking about how can I transfer these skills as a teacher into leadership.
Absolutely. Well, we are grateful that you all found your way into this work. So can you start, you're all three-ish years into it.
Yes.
What has surprised you about this? So you're far enough into it where you're kind of past maybe what you imagined it would be like, and you're firmly in, this is the reality. Can you tell us about that space in between?
I would say I thought that the children was going to be a challenge for me, but it's the teachers.
It's the teachers, yes.
It's the teachers. Teachers are bigger children.
Yes.
And because, children are impressionable, you can lead them, you can change their mind by example. Teachers are like, if they do not buy into what you're doing, it's harder to lead them, especially if their personality is clashing with your leadership. And so just finding that the challenges of leading teachers, especially those teachers that don't want you to lead them because they feel like that they know it all. And so just helping the teachers to realize that you still have to be teachable if you're a teacher. So that's been a little bit of a challenge.
And I think like a unique addition to that for all 3 of us, Lorynn, Anthony, and I all started as assistant principals at the same time. Clearly great minds think alike. We all wore green today, so I know we're very aligned in our thinking. But the other real interesting challenge about leading teachers is that what's also true for us, and that certainly in my school district, is that a lot of the teachers that we are leading are conditionally certified. So many of our teachers are coming out of, the last time they were in a classroom was when they sat in a college classroom. They have no formal teacher training. They didn't go through a teacher prep program. And there are really beautiful things about that, but there are also things that make that really challenging. And so that was not anything that I was prepared for going into this role, about what the changing landscape of teacher attrition into the profession was going to look like, right? And so having to lead teachers who are brand new to the profession, brand new to what it means to look at pedagogy, to plan lessons, all of those things really create a really different, unique challenge. And then they're also adults. So you're also leading adults too. So that has definitely that's a big surprise that I was not prepared for.
And I think just to kind of piggyback with what Anthony says about working with adults, I was in my classroom for 18 years. 18 years I was in my classroom doing what I knew, what I liked, and it was like a big dose of reality when I went into other people's classrooms and they weren't doing things like me. And I was like, oh, some of them were great, and some of them I was like, why are they doing that? And so I think that reality is that not all teachers are teachers the way I taught, so.
Absolutely, absolutely. So all three of you have been recognized for being, incredible teachers. How do you take that teacher sensibility and apply it, especially to adults who may not have had like those same kind of wonderful teacher experiences?
I think for myself is just to be transparent with the teachers, talk to them about the initiatives that we have going on at our school and explain the why. Just the same way I would talk to my students, this is what we're doing, this is why, and work from there and see how we can work together and how I can support my teachers in a way that's positive.
One thing that I do is I make sure that I'm in classrooms every day. Even if I'm handling the logistical part, I will stop and go in the classroom and I'll ask a teacher, give me a small group to work with so that I can still be on the front lines with them. A lot of times the teachers are reluctant because they're like, why are you in here? But showing them that I just don't want to sit in the office, I want to be a part of the instruction. I don't want to just help to tell you what to do. I actually want to be on the front lines doing it with you. And so that helps the teachers to let their guard down and allow me to continue to serve in a teachable role so that they will not feel like they're alone.
And I think along with that too is really remembering, and I know that this is something that's important to all of us, is like keeping a teacher's heart and mind, right? Like knowing that the one thing I never wanted to lose in administration was what it meant to be a teacher, right? And so keeping their humanity at heart first is really important, and recognizing that their job is there is no job more important in that building than the job of those teachers. And so being able to show compassion for teachers, I think, is really, really important because the job is hard work. It is the hardest job. It is critical work, right? That is not easy. And our work is not easy either, but I think really keeping that at heart. And so doing what Anthony is talking about, I do the same thing, like going in, like go make your copies. I'm gonna just take these 30 minutes. And because I really miss teaching, it's also an opportunity for me to go back into the classroom and teach because I really miss that a lot too. So I think being in the classroom, remembering the work that they're doing and emphasizing that, I think is really important.
I'll too say, sometimes I'll go in the classroom and I say, go take a break, and the teacher's like, I'm fine. And I have to say, I'm not asking you. Yeah. I'm insisting. Go use the bathroom, go make a phone call. But then when the teacher comes back, it's like, oh my God, thank you so much. Just validating them. And then every meeting we have, I'm like, teachers, thank you for showing back up. And my principal one day, she was like, why do you keep saying that? And I looked back at her and I said, because this profession is hard. Yeah. We deal with a lot of things that the teachers don't see, but the teachers also deal with a lot of things that we don't see. And then just validating them and telling them, thank you for showing up, it really means a lot. When I first got into the role, I would go around to every classroom and say good morning. And this veteran teacher, she had been teaching for 30 years, she said, Mr. Swann, I've been teaching 30 years and I've never had a principal to say good morning to me. You don't know how much that means to me. Yeah. Just for you to come and check on me every day. So.
And I think with that too, Brianna talked about like us not losing sight of where we came from. I was in a meeting a few months ago, and I had another administrator tell me, well, you still think like a teacher. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't know if it was a compliment or an insult, but I took it as a compliment, and I said, thank you, because I don't want to lose sight of that. And you talk about walking around the room, the campus. My campus has about 9 buildings, and there are some classrooms that are far, far away. But I beat everybody in my steps every day because I make an effort, and I go and I see them. And my first year, I was walking around, and it was a PE class that was in the back field, And the PE teacher said, "What are you doing here? What are you trying to do?" And I'm like, "Nothing, I'm just here to say hello, and I'm not trying to catch you in anything," but it was just being present, being around. And then also the comment, "I can never find you, you're never in your office."
Yeah.
So being out and about.
Which feels like another compliment.
Yes, I'm like, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So also, all three of our principals represent a different grade level, so high school, elementary, and middle school. We have talked prior to this about the tension between patience and urgency, that there are oftentimes when you have to have lots of patience, and then there are times when there needs to be a lot of urgency. I'm really curious about how you know when to lean into patience, when you know it's time to be urgent. How do you manage those two?
So something that has been an interesting challenge for me as a school leader this year, and I think for my district, is we've seen some shifts in leadership and some changing just dynamics at the upper level that are affecting what happens in the school, right? And so one of the things that has been implemented district-wide is PLCs, and we're having this really big focus on data. And so what that has resulted in for teachers is the test needs to be done next week, but I still have 3 more weeks of instruction, but my administrator is saying that this test has to be done, right? And so I've been having this really interesting balance of how do we do what is being asked of us, right? This urgent request, but also recognizing what is in the best interest of our students. And so one of the things that has been a real a challenge for me this year is learning when to say no, and when to say no to the people above me, because if we are not acting in the best interest of students, the answer is no. And so sometimes that patience really comes with patience with those who are not sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in, who are not doing the work with my kids every day, about knowing that there are things that we're gonna do because you say we have to do it, right? And that are important. But also what I'm not gonna do is put additional pressure on my teachers. I'm not gonna make them feel an urgency to do something that we know is not gonna best serve our students, right? And so there is this really interesting balance of knowing that there are urgent needs that are occurring, right? We have to teach our students, we have to provide them with the best instruction, but if there are things that are getting in the way of that come by way of deadlines, then it's a hard no for me. So it's been something that I'm having to learn how to do and find the confidence to do that, to say at the people, the powers that be above me, that there are just some things that are not okay and that we won't do if they don't serve our children.
Yeah, that's powerful.
I think also being that I'm still learning, like Brianna, to be that advocate when I can say no and when I have to do these things, because I have my supervisor and then we have the supervisors down at our central office. And so just learning that balance between, well, that's not going to serve our teachers and that's not going to serve the students. Why are we doing this? And these initiatives that are being sent down, I need to know, I want our staff and our students to get good at these things, to be learners, and not just, this is the here and now, and then move on to the next thing next year. That was so urgent.
So I'll look at it in a different lens as dealing with students and teachers and being the AP in my building, you deal with a lot of the discipline issues. And so sometimes being patient with teachers versus being urgent with the teacher. For instance, this one particular day, I had a parent to show up at the very beginning of school, and she wanted to meet with me about a teacher dealing with her daughter. And I met with the mom, and then I went and I met with the teacher. And the teacher, then after she leaves from meeting with me, the teacher goes back to the classroom and puts the child out. And so I went to the classroom and I realized that the child was put out. At that moment, it was urgent for me to meet with that teacher to let the teacher know this was wrong. You're taking your frustration out on this child and that's not right. And so helping me to lead far as leading teachers, being patient and urgent with them, as well as if they ask for assistance. Do I be patient? Do they be patient with me? And I'll be urgent with getting a child that has eloped from the building and make them wait? Or do I take care of this behavior and make the child that has eloped from the building wait? So I just have to balance those things daily, and it's a learning process.
Absolutely. Thinking about this advocacy specifically for students, you serve students with all kinds of abilities, all kinds of needs, all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of identities. How do you approach your work through that lens of making sure that you are serving all students, or that the school is serving all students?
One of the reasons that I started working in the school district that I did, and specifically the schools that I did, I grew up in a very Black community, but went to all white schools. I spent my whole life as the only Black girl in white spaces. And so for me, I really understood what it means to be misunderstood, right, in a space that I love so much, and school is a space that I love so much, but to not have people contend with my identity. And so I was very intentional about working in all Black schools and all Black spaces, because I wanted my students to have teachers and leaders who look like them and who understand where they're coming from, and understand what does it mean to create access and space for those students. And so that has been that's another challenge that I have sometimes. And when we talked about, sometimes teachers become sometimes teachers are the hardest part of the job. And so something that I have found is, what does it mean and what does it look like to support a teacher who is actively failing our students and actively failing our Black and brown students, and really truly not doing the things that are right for them. And sometimes that comes by way of teachers who look like them too. And so that has been another really interesting challenge. And so that's one of the reasons why I really love being a Black woman in this space. And my school, we're so fortunate and lucky. There's 5 administrators, 1 principal, 4 assistant principals. 4 of us are Black. Most of our teaching staff is Black. And so as a Black woman who has been in this space as both a teacher and a school leader who has literally taught in the same classrooms that they taught, for me, that's really about like modeling with teachers, right? And doing that direct work with teachers. I've done a lot of equity work in my school. And so a lot of it is about having those really tough conversations that sometimes we need to have about like the practices that we are doing in this building. We are perpetuating inequity for our students. We are upholding these systemic barriers and really thinking strategically about what do we need to do in this space to tear those down. Just as for an example, my school, we're a uniform school, and my school sits on the west side of my county. The schools on the other side, which are traditionally white schools, are not uniform schools, right? It's just like it's a choice that we have made as a school, right? And so we have to have those difficult conversations about why is that? Why is that this school here that serves 90% Black students, 6% Hispanic and Latino students, why are we a school that is imposing this uniform policy on our students when the schools on the other side of the county don't? And by the way, we're still a uniform school. No one has listened to me on that one yet. However, it's about having and leveraging and amplifying those conversations to really think about how are we upholding these systems that are perpetuating inequity for our students.
So quick follow-up. So is it one conversation at a time for change? Do you know what I mean? Is it like you need to have this tough conversation 10 times, 30 times, 200 times?
I think it's about having the same conversation over and over and over again. And I think it's that relentless work.
Yep.
That's where we get justice. That's where justice comes for our students, right? The relentless work with the person who is not gonna listen, but I'm gonna continue to say it. It's about having the right conversation with the right people over and over and over again.
So it's not the 2-hour professional development?
No. Right. Yeah. No, not at all.
It's those one-on-one meetings with teachers that you have to have. The principal and I, at my building, we not only call teachers out, but we also call them in. We have those tough conversations right on the spot. There are things that have happened, and the principal's like, Anthony, I need you to find coverage, bring this teacher in right now. Because we just want our teachers to understand that when it comes to Maslowing before Bloom's, you have to do that with children. They have behaviors for a reason. Like, find out why they're screaming. Find out why they're eloping. Find out why they destroyed your room. Did you know last night that they experienced gunshots? Did you know? We tell our teachers the background of our children. We had one child specifically, he watched his grandmother die on Christmas Eve. And so when he comes to school, if he's upset or if he's irate or he doesn't want to do the work and he just want to sleep, okay, let's support him. We can get him out of the classroom while you continue to teach, but at the same time, find out their background so that you can serve them better, so that you can understand their behaviors and put them as a human first before their academics.
And just talking about learning the students' backgrounds, at our in our district, we utilize capturing kids' hearts to really learn about who our students are. We learn their backgrounds, but the same thing goes for the staff as well. Learning what's going on with the staff. Why is this teacher upset? Why is she sending kids to the office all the time? You know, we're learning about divorces, loss, new things that are coming in, school. So all these different things that are happening along with the teachers, the students, it's also happening with the teachers too.
That's good.
Yeah. Absolutely. So what is unique about being an assistant principal?
There's a lot of things.
You are on an island by yourself. In my particular role, they have APs that they can talk to. I'm the only one. And so sometimes I have to hold my tone with a lot of things because I don't have anyone to release it to. And I feel like if I release it to the principal, she's going to look at me differently. But thankfully, I do have a principal who is very reflective in her leadership. And when she notices that I'm not releasing something, she will just stay on me until I do release it. And so just realizing that sometimes you can feel alone, but yet I can call people like them and then just release it and we'll talk about it. So those are some of the things for myself.
One of the things we talked about too together was that like the interesting part about being an assistant principal is that the principal has all the responsibility, but the AP does all the work. Yes. And so there's beauty in that, right? One of the lovely things is that I think as an administrator, as an assistant principal, you know everything that's happening in the building. You know all the intricacies, you know all the details, you know everything, and you have your hands in everything. And that's a really powerful role to be in, right? To be able to have a say in all the things that happen, but you are doing all the work. So that's like one of the unique balances of this position.
And I do appreciate that like I said earlier, I get to go into other classrooms. For the longest time, I was in my classroom. Occasionally, I would go to my colleague's classroom, but as a language arts teacher, I was only in the English wing. Now I get to go to the science classes, to the math classes. I was learning about band the other day, and I sat there with the kids, and they were explaining how they learn how to do the different movements for a halftime performance. And so that's what I appreciate, that I get to do those types of things and experience it with the kids. And then I ask them about it. I get to ask the teachers, I follow up. So when these walkthroughs come through, I'm asking, how was that band performance? I know you were practicing and you competed. And so I can do these follow-ups, and we do know everything that's going on in the school.
What about systematically, like the role of an assistant principal systematically? So do you find yourself empowered? Do you find yourself kind of like caught within the system in a unique space? What is that kind of like unique space like when you think about it system-wide?
I feel like I am caught in the middle sometimes. Like I said, I'm in my third year. What can I do? Where can I take those initiatives? My supervisor says, you need to do this, you need to do that. Okay. And then there's other things that I'm like, you know what I think would be a good idea? If we could try this, and I'm told no. And so it's like being, what is that balance that I can have in my role?
I would have to say for me, it's being caught in the middle sometimes because you have those teachers who disagree with the principal, so they come and talk to you and they say, don't tell the principal. And so I'm like, but then if the principal asks me, I can't lie, but at the same time, I also have to protect the teacher. And so sometimes being caught in the middle with that as well. In addition, I've also been told, like, you're still thinking like a teacher. And in my brain, I'm saying I'm always gonna think like a teacher because at the end of the day, if this role ends, I'm going back into the classroom. And so I never wanna lose that teaching ability. In addition, disagreeing with things that happen with my children on a broader scale and not being able to really voice it because you don't want the principal to look bad because it is the principal's building. And so I have to find myself biting my tongue a lot. But at the same time, knowing when enough is enough and asking for a meeting with the assistant superintendent to let them know your concern. So
I think one of the things I learned really early on was that one of the roles of the assistant principal is to enact and carry out the vision of the principal, who's also enacting and carrying out the vision of their executive directors, who's enacting the vision of the superintendent, right? And so systematically, it's an interesting role because you're really like feeling the trickle down of someone else's vision. And so I think it really does come down to what kind of relationship you have with your principal. I have a wonderful principal who has been really open about me, and I've been a little rebellious about some things to say, like, I don't think that this is okay, right? Like, I don't think that this is something that we should do, but at the end of the day, it's his building, right? And so being an assistant principal is also really learning humility. It's absolutely a humbling role because you have to learn that, like, even if I know or I don't believe in my core that this is the right thing or what we should be doing, my job is to support my principal's vision. My job is to enact what he sees and what he wants for this school space and trust in that. So it's about having a lot of trust in the leadership above you.
Sure.
Absolutely. One of the things that I oftentimes have experienced with assistant principals that I've worked with is they just oftentimes look so darn tired. Like they just are so tired. But one of the things that I hear in everything that you're saying is that you have created these spaces for you to go find energy, right? Like within your day to day. So, when you're in the classroom, you're going to the band room, you do in all of these spaces, was that something that you just did? Did you have to wait for permission? Did you have to carve it out? How does that happen? Because I don't know if everybody just does that.
I think for me, it's happened really naturally. And so for me, my space is the students. I'm really fortunate that the way my school works is that I started with my kids in 6th grade and I've looped with them, right? So my babies are in 8th grade now, so they'll be leaving me very soon. And they are the best part of my day. There is no greater joy than I get in all the things. I love watching teachers. I love seeing instruction. I love supporting. I love doing PD. I really enjoy those things. But my favorite part of the day is lunch. I don't enjoy and I used to hate having to run lunch, but I love running lunch. It's my favorite time of the day because it's the time when everybody is in my face and they have 1,000 questions. And Ms. Ross, can you switch my class? And can I go to your office? It's just all these things. And so that time with the students, and I think you need it because it is exhausting. Because you do have a hand in everything, there are 1,000 things in my brain constantly. There are nights where I'm sleeping, dreaming about my kids and dreaming about the things I have to do. And so it's not even an intentional thing. I think for me, it's been this thing that's happened naturally. And one of the reasons why I wanted to be an assistant principal was because I wanted to continue to foster these really beautiful relationships with students. And so for me, being able to do that over the course of 3 years has just been the last 3 years has been the most incredible experience of my life. And I used to think about when I left the classroom, one of the things I was really worried about was oh my God, I'm not gonna have these relationships anymore. I'm not gonna be teaching. And this job has been that amplified because I've been able to do that now with 400 students and we do it every day and we've done it for 3 years. And now I get to carry on these relationships in a different way that's outside of what you do as a teacher. And so that my space for recluse has been my students.
I would say for me, it's natural. It was a teacher that saved my life. And so no matter where I go in my journey in education, I always want to validate teachers. I always want to support them.
Yeah. And I think for me, I didn't know any different. As soon as I walked into a room, I introduced myself, and that was just natural to me. I'm new on the campus, I was new to the district, and I just started walking around introducing myself to a staff of 120 people because not everybody's going to know me. And even my signature in my email has my picture in it so people can make that connection. And it's the silliest picture, but people are like, I recognize you from somewhere. And I'm like, cause you read my email. And so thinking like my students, I'm a visual learner. That's how I learn. That's how I remember. And so those things I bring in because I'm trying to, make sure that other people are learning the same way.
Yeah. I know all three of you are lifelong learners. How do you think about your ongoing learning? And how do you think about your ongoing growth? And is it in a hierarchy? Is it more like a web? Is it a combination? How do you think about your ongoing growth and learning?
Definitely, I continue to learn. I'm surprised by different things every day. I want to learn more about this, or I want to learn more about that. And so it's just a continuous growth. I wish it was linear and neat, but it is not. I feel like it's like a little web that's going here and there, and I have different ideas, and I'm like, why are you thinking that? Like, just go to sleep. You talk about just going to sleep. Just go to sleep. And so I get these ideas, and I start researching and asking, and I just kind of move on from there.
For me, I always want to, my next aspiration is to become an actual building principal. And so just watching my principal, and I'm learning in these last 3 years what to do and what not to do. So when I do get my own building, I've learned from watching other leaderships what to do and what not to do, and also taking courses with my teachers. I was just in a letters course the other day, and a chunk of my teachers was in that course, and I was sitting with them at the table, and for them to see, okay, well, he's here, he's learning, so I might as well just get on board too. So.
Yeah, I would say for so long, my learning was very linear. Like, it was very sequential and it really made sense. And since stepping into this role, it has been everything and everywhere. And all the things that I thought I wanted and I thought I cared about, I still care about the same things. But a lot of it has changed and it has really branched out. So I'm working right now on my doctorate in educational leadership. And so, like, even that journey, doing that as an assistant principal, the things that every day there, like Lorynn said, every day there is something new. So the learning has definitely like amassed a territory that I did not expect and has not made, sometimes doesn't seem like it has made sense, but because every day just is a new experience, and kids will continue to teach you every single day. So it's just it is like a beautiful space to be in as a leader and a learner at the same time.
Absolutely. So I'm going to turn it over to the audience I can kind of see you out here. Does anyone have questions that they would like to pose? We're going to use our teacher wait time.
Teacher wait time.
Teacher wait time.
There's a question back in the back.
Good afternoon. I'll try to use my teacher voice.
We got a mic runner coming to you.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for sharing so much of your own experiences. I have to tell you that what came through is your passion. That was very evident, and how personal you made it in your leadership. That's so appreciated, so thank you. My question is, there's many roles that you play, from instructional leader to logistics to culture leader. How do you balance all of those roles to make sure you're giving each the adequate attention they deserve?
That's a really great question. I would say when you're feeling the pressure from the district of getting evaluations done, then at that particular moment, I'm the instructional leader, so I have to get in classrooms. Discipline is going to have to wait. When parents show up at the school, it depends on the urgency of the parent. If the parent is just there to voice a concern, if I'm dealing with the child, I'll finish with the student first, and then I'll meet with the parent. Or if the parent is irate, I'll make everyone else wait and deal with the parent so I can get the parent's concern to get them out of my building so that my building can continue to have a good climate. And so just balancing and knowing what to be, when to be that, it helps me.
Yes.
Good afternoon. So what do you all do to support inclusive practices, not only for your students with disabilities, but maybe staff members with disabilities?
I make sure I'm that advocate for my students. We do have staff members that have disabilities as well, and I want to make sure that in my building that we're able to meet the needs of the staff and the students. A lot of times with our special education students, I know there's a difference between the special education students that are gifted and talented and the special education students that have like low incidence. And I really I know that they're not, it's not equitable, but I know there's a disconnect in there. And I really want to advocate for the teachers and the students and the parents. And so that's what I do on my campus.
I would also just add to that I think one of the really important things in this role is just what Lorynn said, is about that advocacy piece. So what I have experienced at my school, about 13% of our population of students at least have disabilities. And so a lot of what we have had to do and what I've had to do as an administrator is advocate, particularly to like my district office, for our students, right? Like the student is not in the right placement, or they're not receiving the right services. A lot of times it feels like having to be a little bit of a menace to make sure that our students are getting the supports and the services that they need. So, and especially I think doing that work also sometimes on behalf of parents, right? Like that's also a really important role that I serve as an administrator, is helping our parents navigate the special education system and that world if they're not familiar with it. So really doing that advocacy work for students is really important as well. Yes.
I really appreciated you sharing your stories about what led you into administration, especially after all of your success as a teacher. To build on that, I'm curious how you support teachers in looking at their future trajectory, whether it be as teacher leaders or administrators. Can you share any tips or advice on how to support teachers in those next steps?
For myself, I continue to support the teachers. If they're going to school, I'm there for them. Sometimes they have to do these capstone projects and they have to have administrators come in during those presentations. That is my priority at that time. So whatever else is happening, I work with my the other assistant principals, and I say, I have to be there in this meeting. I have to go, I have to leave early, because it's important to the teachers and it's important to me that they're successful. And so I continue to work with them. Some of the classes I've taken, they're taking right now. How do you work with this professor? What does this look like? And so supporting them in that way as well. And then telling them, there's this job opening. Do you think that's something that you want to do? Let me know about that letter of recommendation. I can definitely do that for you. So in any little way that I can support those teachers is how I encourage them.
One thing I do is I'm very Maslow before Blooms with my teachers too. So we have a lot of new initiatives in my district, and the teachers are feeling overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh my God, I was up to 10:30 on Sunday. And I'll have the conversation like, it'll be there tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You don't have to get it done today. You can finish tomorrow. Just to let them know, like, you're human too. So don't feel like you have to do everything now. And in order for you to grow in your ability to be a great educator, you have to also know that you can't pour from an empty cup. And if your cup is empty today, stop today so that you can start again tomorrow, so that you can be your best self for the children.
All right, hello. Thank you so much for the opportunity to just be here and hear your stories. One question I have is really about support that you all need. So many of us here are either former or current state education agency staff members or community-based support partners. So what can we do to support the work that you're doing every day?
I just shared this, we had a little conversation before, that I do have 2 other APs that I can talk to. My dad was a former administrator, but my children are not. So things that happen on campus, sometimes I don't share them with them. I don't share it with my parents because I don't want them to worry. And we did have the conversation that I do need to talk to somebody. I need somebody to know what I'm going through. I do need help sometimes. I'm mentally and physically exhausted, and being conscientious of reaching out. And in my district, we have we have that ability. We have it through our insurance. It's just knowing, where do I need to go? And having those resources, and we have them listed for the staff throughout the district on where we can get that support.
I think that is great. My wife is a teacher, and so when I get home, I have to hear all of her stories. And so because she word vomits all the time, I can't share with her what I've dealt with all day. So I just have to hold on to it. So having that space is also great. In addition, I would say we need people that's far and removed from the classroom and from the building level to come to the building level. to see exactly what we have to deal with, because a lot of times these things are pushed down to us and not realizing we have to deal with X, Y, and Z before we can get to the things that are needed.
Okay. Good afternoon. So I'm Jackie Wilson, and I work with a lot of school leaders, so I've loved enjoying listening to your stories and your passion. But I do have a question. The research is pretty clear that principals are second on their impact to students following teachers. So we know that the number one evidence-based practice is how principals provide feedback to teachers about the quality of the instruction in their classrooms. Now, I was super impressed, 18 years of teaching. I think I missed for the others, but people are getting into administration with less and less experience as teachers. And then your job is to go in to watch a lesson and help that teacher improve the quality of her or his instruction. So from your perspective, because we know that sometimes assistant principals don't always get as much professional development because they're back minding the store. So any guidance you have a room full of policy leaders here about, what do you need for yourself so that you can help grow the talent of teachers that you're now supervising and supporting?
That's a really wonderful question. One of the things we have all discussed is that our hands are in every pot, right? If I could choose two pots every day, it would be the students and the teachers. Solely building relationships with students and supporting instruction, and unfortunately, that's just not the reality of what our job is, what we're able to do. I have a really good friend who's also an assistant principal, and she's in an elementary school like Anthony, and she has all the hats, and because she's the only one, you're the only one, she literally has to do everything. I'm really fortunate. I have a school of 1,300 students, but there's 4 of us, so we get to spread, right? We get to spread out. And this is the first year she's gotten an IEP chair. She's never had an IEP chair before, so she's had to do that work. So 3 days a week she's in IEP meetings, so that's taking her away from students, that's taking her away from teachers. And so I think that's something to think about in terms of the kind of support that's being offered in school. For example, counseling services that's another role that we play that's an understated role. I know all of us have school counselors in our building, but we know that the needs of our students every day are changing, right? Our students are coming to school with trauma. Our students are coming to school with a host of experiences that I have not faced, right, as an adult, that I hope I never will face, right? And so I think because of the nature of all the things that we have every day, there are just literally not enough people to do the job. I think if there was one thing that I wish that there were more of, I wish that there were more people to help support, so that work of can I go in and really be an instructional coach and not feel like me spending this hour and a half in a teacher's classroom has taken me away from 5,000 other things, right? Even the 3 of us sitting here, all of us weren't at work today, right? And we talked about that, about what does that feel like knowing that we have now left our buildings, and what is it that we're coming back to? What are all the things that didn't happen today because we weren't there? And I think when it comes to what kind of personnel and support do we need more mental health professionals in our buildings, that in particular, because I would say 60% of what I do every day is just supporting students emotionally. It's the work that I love to do, but then that does take away from being able to do those other really important tasks. So I would just say that we need more support in schools. We literally need more people in school buildings to do the work of supporting students.
We need people to see what we did. Quick story, last year I had one particular bus. The bus was so crowded, there were 4 children to a seat. And the children were looking at me with tears in their eyes saying, Mr. Swann, I don't have anywhere to sit. And so what I had to do, I was like, it's okay, we're gonna get you home safely. But deep down on the inside, I am furious because you have 4 children to a seat on this bus and you won't give us another bus. So finally, the assistant superintendent came and got on the bus and saw what I was seeing, and then we got another bus. So we need people to see what we have to deal with so that we can get the support in order to support our children as well as our teachers.
We are almost, was there one more? Yeah, one more. Ross.
Thank you, all of you, so much for sharing your stories. I have a question around family engagement and thinking about especially our special populations, our students with special needs, as well as our English learners. How do you, what is your work around engaging those families, and what have you found that works best?
So in my school, we just started this parent initiative, and I was a part of it the first year. We just completed it last year. It's a conference for the parents. And in my district, we have predominantly Spanish-speaking families. And so we bring in a lot of different resources, and then we have our students help during this time. And so we have our junior ROTC, they're escorting the parents around. We have translators for the families. And then we also have some of our students who are showing these parents the basic things on how to check their kids' grades on their phones. So we have Power School, and we have the app. And sometimes these families don't know how to use it. They don't know how to download the app and everything. And so we have our students helping them. We have our Educators Rising students who help with childcare. They create lesson plans, and then they have the different rooms for the little kids. They're working with ages 3 to 4, and so that's the engagement that we try to bring in. We bring in the resources from the community as well. It's just one day, but it's opening those doors for those conversations. And then also, in working with the students, I have, at our school, we work with alphas. So my students I work with are G through O, and that's about 400 students. And I've established good relationships with the families. When I call, I'm the one calling for attendance, for discipline. I'm sitting in the IEPs with the kids. And so making those connections with them, it's hard, but little by little, I feel like I'm making leeway. And the other administrators that I work with are the same way. And again, being out and about, and we attend every single event, you know, where it might not seem like a big deal to go to the theater performance or to ROTC performance or the competition, but it's those little things, and that's where we see the parents and we make those connections. So that's just kind of something that we do in our district.
I would just add to that I think a part of family engagement, especially for our marginalized communities, is really meeting them where they are. I think sometimes as schools we focus so much on how do we get the parents here, what event can we do to get people and to get families here, when really our focus should be in the opposite direction. How do we get to them, and how do we get to where they are, right? And especially for schools like mine, which is very much a community school, we need to just be out in the community. And so if that's what that looks like for us, is like on the weekends, we go to football games, we go to church events, like we go to where our students are rather than asking them to come to us. That's good.
Well, thank you so much, all three of you. As I'm listening to you, there's so many through lines, but a few that are still really resonating. One is the way that you are side by side with your teachers, like that you're constantly either learning beside them, sitting beside them, you know, just really in that space with them. The way that you, of course, are putting your students at the center of everything, and just this incredible passion. You know, I'm just so proud of you, because I knew them, I've known them for a while. And so it's just really, really heartwarming to see this. And also, I think you all have a sense of urgency that you are sharing, and I think that sense of urgency is something that's also really felt by everyone in this room. So I thought maybe we could end with I call it a lightning round. It's just a few questions, like one-word answers. They're super easy. Does that sound fun?
Yes.
Okay, all right. How about we start with something you're reading?
Policy. I'm taking, Brianna talked, about going to school. I'm doing my doctorate as well, so I'm learning about policy.
Letters course, learning the science of reading versus just teaching reading comprehension.
Yeah. My dissertation proposal over and over and over and over and over again.
How about something you're listening to?
My goodness.
Teachers.
Okay.
Beyonce, always.
Beyonce.
Yeah, always.
I can't think. I mean, I'm a 90s hip hop and R&B, so sorry.
Something that's bringing you joy.
Being an advocate for educators.
Talking with my state teachers of the year cohort.
My students.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it. The three of our panelists will be here for a little bit, so feel free to come up and say hi if you want.